animals in their habitat. With so many feet clambering over the rocks, animals that live in the splash and high tide zones, such as seaweeds, barnacles, mussels, and slow-moving snails, get trampled upon. Life is especially rough during low tides when exposed animals seek refuge under loose rocks and seaweed.
Oftentimes people will pick up an animal and rush it over to one of their friends so that they can show them what they saw. And oftentimes after they've done that, they'll set it right down onto the ground right there. And that presents quite a problem for those animals.
The removal of one organism greatly affects the survival of another. Some animals, like sea snails, are grazers who feed on algae. Others, like sea anemones and sea stars, are carnivores or meat eaters who like to eat other organisms. Scavengers, like the California spiny lobster or the hermit crab, will eat anything that's dead or rotting. The food chain doesn't stop in the tide pool. Many animals who live in deeper water also depend on the tide pool critters for their meals. There are 7 designated marine life refuges in Orange County, but only 3 of them offer educational programs. At the Ocean Institute in Dana Point, Crystal Cove State Park, and Little Corona, educators use everything from science to humor to get the message across. They speak of defense mechanisms, feeding strategies, conservation issues, and overall protection of this delicate yet vibrant ecosystem that is such an important part of the California coastline.
School groups that arrive at our refuge that are prepared have a lesser impact than school groups, obviously, that don't, because those groups understand that there are behavioral expectations, and they know they're not supposed to turn over rocks, and they know they're not supposed to leave trash. They know all the rules about not collecting, and more than anything, they understand that they're respecting another habitat. So we're finding that the trick to preserving Orange County's tide pools for students is that they spend the time to prepare prior to their field trip.
My type of animal is a goose barnacle. A goose barnacle lives in salt water, and it has 25 eyes.
My type of animal is a clam. A clam has a soft body inside of its hard shell. My animal is a sea star. A sea star has many different colors, and it can regenerate an arm if it loses one.
And my animal's an oyster, and they could be a boy or girl depending on the temperature of the water.
As you can see, most of these kids here are staying up on the dry rocks. They're taught not to walk on mussels, not to walk in the pools, not to pull anything off the rocks. And even though they might be doing a little bit of damage by tromping around, they're doing a lot less than they would without knowing those things.
I just wanted to say to observe the tide pools because they're so beautiful, but don't touch them because you can harm the habitats.
And the tide pools are important to our state, and so we should keep them safe by not throwing trash and taking the animals home.
And I want to keep our beaches clear, so pick up your trash. When you're in the tide pools, don't take anything from them because it's their habitat, and it's just like somebody's taking your home away from you. I think it's important to keep the water clean because you don't want trash getting out there and like plastic and stuff, the animals get all wrapped up in it. And it's important, you don't want to be swimming around in a bunch of trash.
So the message that I think we're trying to communicate to the kids here in Orange County is that when you go to the marine life refuges, don't take anything home with you, that it's a zone of no collecting, that you should leave everything the way that you found it, and that really, if you're going to take anything, I guess, from the refuges, it should be the educational lessons, and it's the lesson of preserve and protect it for the next generation.
So remember, when you're visiting the tide pools with your class, family, or friends, to always follow good tide pooler rules. Never remove animals, shells, or rocks from the tide pools. Never pick up animals. Observe them where they are. Walk gently, taking care not to step on plants or animals. Never turn over rocks.
Happy tide pooling!
If you go down to the ocean, down by some rocky shore, when the tide goes out, you'll be dancing like you never danced before. Crabs they pitch at the rhythm, sea stars walk on hollow feet. Sea anemones are waving their tentacles, while sculpins are looking for something to eat. If you go down to the ocean, down by some rocky shore, when the tide goes out, you'll be dancing like you never danced before. Do the tide pool boogie, boogie, woogie, woogie, listen to that ocean beat. Do the tide pool boogie, boogie, woogie, woogie, it's amazing who you'll meet. Do the tide pool boogie, boogie, woogie, woogie, as the wind